and that's kind of like the whole thing with a lot of it. Like none of it's secret. There's no secrets. Like there's nothing really anybody's doing that's like super secret stuff. You could go on the internet and find anything. It's just knowing where to look, knowing what to look for. So and there's a lot of statistics and stuff.
Yeah.
That we're going to be running through.
And there's some video, some actual video we'll have.
Yeah. So
bring some points on.
it's all, I wouldn't say common knowledge, but it's all out there. Anyone can pretty much find it. So.
Good deal. Oh, Mr. Fayette.
Well, a lot of people in our community, they just go to the internet or something like this. When we have a class in the camp room in the morning, they don't come, actually they watch it later.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the things that they're used to looking at our YouTube.
Right. And a lot of the things is, a lot of it's kind of like what you're looking for also. So like a lot of the knowledge is if it's not something you're looking for, if you don't go, just like with anything else, if you don't actually go and seek knowledge out, it's not going to come and find you. So sometimes you have to go and look for the answers to the questions that maybe you never knew you had to ask. So
right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
And as far as like even with training and stuff, because I get questions sometimes about as far as training and like different people and what you should look for in an instructor and stuff like that. Everybody's got to kind of come from somewhere, as far as backgrounds and stuff like that goes. So, everybody's got to, no one just automatically knows about the stuff, right? You have to kind of go out and seek the information, and if it's something that interests you, then you need to, follow up and do what you need to do. So, just like with all the stuff on here, it's all, common knowledge out there. It's just you got to know where to look and, what you're looking for.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess we can go ahead and get started.
Can I do the intro for you guys?
Yes.
Because I'm going to act like the whole room's full. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
The whole room's full. CBS, NBC, ABC's here. So I should stand in front of the camera?
Yeah, that'd be fine. If you like.
In front of them?
Want me to swing it to you?
Why don't you just swing it?
I can swing it on.
But I'm going to
You can
stand
just
up.
swing it.
Okay.
How
about over here?
Yeah. So it's going to be like that.
Story of my life. It's kind of winning stuff if I go.
Ready?
Yeah.
Good morning from New Talavana Dam, Carrier, Mississippi. My name is Bushaya Das, and I'd like to present our presentation today. It's called Don't Be a Victim.
Okay.
This is a bit of a different type of training here in New Talavana. It has a lot to do with one thing that's very important to everyone here is protection and safety of the devotees of Lord Krishna. So this subject is very important regarding the well-being of devotees. We live in a society in a day and age where worshipers of God, regardless of what religion, are undergoing assault, harassment, or even worse, homicides. And so today, by the blessings and the sponsorship of our temple president and our CMG, I want to introduce our instructors who are going to give us some practical knowledge and aspects of tactics, self-defense, lethal and non-lethal, and basically common sensible types of procedures and mindsets of how we can deal with these things. We as devotees of Krishna are aware of the hazards and the dualities of this material world, but this subject of devotee protection and protecting the temples and properties, I don't think it's been emphasized enough. So in our humble little effort today, we're going to have some information spread and given to us. Today, this morning, I'm very pleased to introduce two instructors who are highly qualified. on the subject of self-defense and safety for church communities. To my left is Mr. Frank Russo. If we can get the camera on Frank. Mm-hmm. Frank Russo, who I met at the local Mississippi Combat Training Academy, which is here in Hancock County. He's a senior instructor there. He is an expert in many, many types of firearms, and he brings a wealth of information, working 20 years in the security industry. Currently, he is a senior supervisor of a security operation at a federal installation here in Mississippi. Frank owns he's the current owner and CEO of Dynamic Tactical Concepts, and he's also a certified NRA defense pistol instructor. So I want to welcome Frank Russo and his knowledge and subject of self-defense and the tactics of that can apply to a church community such as ours. Can we clap? Our second instructor is Deputy Officer Anthony Norton, who has he's a 20-year veteran of the St. Tammany Parish, which is Slidell, Louisiana, St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Department. He is an Army veteran, a combat medic. He is a master instructor trainer for the state of Louisiana correction system. He is an expert in self-defense, law enforcement application at the correctional stage of the prison systems, and also as a police instructor, an active police instructor. He is an active duty deputy officer, and we're pleased to have Mr. Anthony Norton here today. I'm going to keep talking and bubbling around, and we're going to get to the presentation with Frank Russo and Anthony Norton. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. We got a few more people coming in.
Yeah. So we're here today to give basically a situational awareness presentation. A lot of people really don't give it much thought to, the awareness and as far as like what's going on around them and what's going on as far as safety goes. For most people, it's kind of a late thought in the back of their head as far as what's going on, the people that are around them, the situations that they could or could not be in, and basically to have a strategy and a plan just in case if something does happen to be able to come out of that situation on top and not make a bad situation worse. We were kind of discussing this morning, as far as like response time, there's a 30-minute response time, and that's kind of going on the lighter side of everything. So which means it's kind of going to be an in-house type of situation. If anything... Could you explain to them the police response time concept? Police response time, Anthony, definitely chime in whenever you want. Police response time, basically, if something was to happen, if there was an active shooter here, if they did need some kind of a medical assistance that law enforcement would have to come with an EMS crew or anything like that, it's going to be about 30 to 40 minutes before someone gets here. Which means that everything's got to be done in-house for the most part. You're going to be your own first responders. 12 acres, I think?
120.
1,200 acres.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of space to cover. And it could be anywhere. And of course, everyone's going to kind of be in a centralized location, but still, depending on what type of response team you have, is going to determine the outlook and the how everything's going to end up if something was to happen. We also discussed vetting of people coming in and out, which is an important thing. nowadays the catchphrase is the whole mental health situation, right? And that kind of goes across the board for everyone. No particular background or anything like that is gonna affect that. You know, some people they're just wired different. And if anybody's got anything they want to add in, you know, you're welcome. Go ahead, questions or anything like that. But basically, let's get started with the presentation. And we got a lot of good statistics in there. I brought this is an inert can of Saber Red, which is a less than lethal form of self-defense. Like I said, things to think about. This is not like the end-all be-all of everything, but it is something I recommend, and I actually carry some with me because it does give you that advantage to get out of a bad situation quickly if it's used correctly. So without further ado, I guess
We get started?
yeah, let's get started with the presentation.
So we're going to go through some situational awareness stuff. This thing's still on? Yeah. All right. So definition of situational awareness. It's the perception of the environment, the elements, the events, perspective, the time and space that you're in. All right. And your ability to comprehend the meanings of what's going on, and can you project possible outcomes on how things may develop, or how the situation may arise. So of course it's broken down into 3 segments: perception of elements in your environment, the comprehension of the situation that's occurring, and the projection of future status. Are things going to go, just turning into a bad situation or not? Those
Right.
things.
There's always that time where the situation's not going to get any better. Like you would hope it could get better. You would hope it will get better. But there needs to be a limit drawn, or a line drawn, basically, where the situation's not getting any better, and basically it's time to act. So it's basically the OODA loop process, which we'll kind of get into that. But basically, it's you would have to decide, this is what's going on. I'm processing all this information, and now it's time to act and to have a plan. That's to have a plan, to have an idea of if something does happen. Right? How am I going to take care of this situation? Always be going over different scenarios in your mind and in your head of what could happen and how would I react in this situation.
So simply put, right, are you aware of your current and present surroundings all the time? So things that we're talking about that you need to be aware of, right? Are you aware of the people, places, and things that are occurring within your environment, your immediate area, things that you can see, hear, activities, right, noise levels, any threat indicators you may see. We'll get into some of that a little later in a couple slides. And are you able to comprehend and apply context to what's going on around you? All right. A lot of this is done through your previous experiences, any training you may have had in the past or whatever. And based on those, it can help you determine if there are some hazardous situations that are about to occur. Also, you then have the ability to formulate possible plans and/or actions in case of emergency. And that could be anything from, an active shooter, to fire, any kind of emergency.
Heart attack, stroke.
Medical emergency.
It could be something as simple as, okay, so if I cut myself really bad and I'm bleeding, where's the nearest emergency kit so I can bandage myself up? Something is that simple, all the way to, active shooter, because it doesn't always have to go to that high level of this is the worst case scenario. Just little things and being prepared for those little things.
So there's 4 levels of awareness. Everybody, whether you know it or not, everybody operates in these 4 levels, right? A white level is basically you're unaware of what's going on around you. The best example I can give you is you're in a public place, and we see it all the time, right? Everybody's
here. Yep, everybody's on social media.
If I'm here,
stuff and
do I know anything that's going on around me? No, because all my attention is one spot. That's the easiest example to give on a white.
Yeah.
Now, condition yellow or level level 2, which is yellow, you're aware of what's going on around you. You're constantly kind of scanning. You're looking for any potential threats. You know, you're seeing how the situation around you is evolving and things of that nature.
Right. I like to kind of use the example as far as, so, you know, you go to Walmart, and you got to go pick up, you know, whatever you got to go pick up from Walmart. You park your vehicle, you get out your vehicle. So are you going to be looking in your phone the whole way walking up to the door?
No.
Or are you paying attention to other people around you, other vehicles? You know, does anything look out of place? You know, do you have a bunch of people who are just kind of hanging out, scanning the parking lot, looking to cause trouble or looking to cause some type of mischief? You know, just being able to pay attention to everything going around, because you're already going to be behind the curve if something does happen. Because you just can't look at someone and say, oh, well, this person, he doesn't look right, so I'm just going to start being aggressive with him. You're always going to be reacting to whatever they give you. So at least if you make a mental note of a possible, it's all about possibles, a possible dangerous or situation that just doesn't seem right, well, then it's in your head. Now you can start formulating a plan where if something does happen, something does go awry, you have an exit strategy, you have a backup plan, you have something instead of being startled and caught off guard. So that's kind of where being in condition yellow is. Knowing what's going on, knowing your surroundings, and having a plan, starting to build a plan up.
From yellow, we move to orange. That's a potential threat. You observe, you know, you're seeing something that is developing that's kind of got, the best way to explain it is the little hairs on the back of your neck kind of stand up a little bit.
Your spidey sense is tingling.
Something's going on that ain't right. And you just really, this is generally where you really start to focus in on that thing that's happening, right? Condition red is the threat is evolving. It's becoming more real. You're now, you know, recognizing that, and now you're just kind of waiting for everything to materialize.
Right.
This is where I tell my daughter all the time. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I tell her all the time. I said, you ever get into orange and red, you need to leave. That's what I tell her. You need to leave.
That's why it's so crucial to pay attention, right? It's so crucial to not be in condition white, to be in condition yellow all the time. Because if you basically kind of live in condition yellow, it's not like you're on high alert all the time, but you're just being conscious of your surroundings and of what's going on. So you can consciously, you can formulate plans in your head and go through different scenarios and different outcomes before it gets to orange. Because by condition red, you need to be able to react at that point. Because that means the threat's imminent, it's coming, whatever threat that may be, right? And this kind of goes across a broad spectrum, but, you know, active shooter-wise or, you know, something violent,
Right.
you know, at that point in condition red, you want to already have a plan. You should kind of have a plan in place. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't always have to go to that extreme, but it could. And that's the sad state of the world we're in now, but it could. And when it happens very quickly. Yeah.
So, as far as transferring all that information right here, right now, when we're having a worship service or a ceremony or even a public festival, every person that comes through that door that I don't know, I want to know who they are.
Right.
And if they're friendly or foe, I want to know what their expectations are.
Correct.
And what should I anticipate. So that's how we can transfer that.
And
right.
a lot of ways to do that is by personal interaction.
Right.
So what we don't have a lot of, I mean, we're in 2020, right? We don't have a lot of this, right? Communication, right? How does everybody communicate now? Through text messages and emails. Very seldom do people actually call or communicate with each other. Even at work, I got a supervisor whose office is 4 doors down, and he'll send me an email about things that need to be accomplished for whatever that day. With my guys that I supervise, whereas, you know, it would take a minute for him to get up and just come walk in there and be like, hey, you know, this is what I need taken care of. Most people nowadays it's almost like they're afraid of that personal interaction, but that is a good way to judge someone's intent. You know, just shaking their hand or, you know, conversing with them for 5 minutes. You can get a good idea of where this person's at, mentally wise, and just as far as their whole outlook on things. So, like you were saying, if they're having a worship service going on, and, you know, people walk in that you don't know, okay, I'm not saying, you know, jump to condition orange or jump to condition red, but be in condition yellow, where, okay, mental note, this person just walked in, and he's positioned himself in, you know, he's sitting or he's standing in a certain area. Just to know where that person's at, you know, to know where all the exits are at. I mean,
That's going to kind of get into the next slide.
Yeah, so.
Good.
So this is kind of like whenever you enter an area, or even in your own current areas, you always have basically a baseline, right, of what that environment's like. You know what the normal atmosphere, the normal functions, and everything going on.
Normal feeling just in the air.
So one of the best examples I give is you go to a diner or a restaurant. You know, if you you generally want to position yourself in a position where you can see the entrance, you can see the exits, you know, that kind of stuff. But you have a really good view of kind of what's going on around you, right? And once you do that, you're going to establish what that baseline is, the basic feel of that environment. So you're taking in noise levels, you know, what's the noise levels, any smells, lighting levels, movement patterns of the staff or patrons that are in there, activities of the patrons, how people are dressed, right? So we all know that if somebody's dressed inappropriately for the weather that's occurring, that should be kind of a red flag that should kind of perk you up and go, okay, what's going on with this individual? You know, why are they dressed like that? The mood of people, of course. So all these things you're looking at to establish a baseline. And then some other things that we need to look for that during that would interrupt that baseline. These are some things we need to look for that would cause you to then peak your awareness, right? You start focusing in on things. Number one is we want to look for any kind of uncomfortable behavior. So we look for this all the time in law enforcement or in security, right? We look for this all the time, any kind of unusual behavior. People that are involved in illegal activities or about to engage, they exhibit unusual behavior. They act weird. They don't act normal for the situation that they're in because they're preparing themselves to do something. You also want to look for any unusual actions. So, you know, you already know the normal actions, everything going on as part of your developing baseline. So when you see someone come in that's acting differently than everybody else in there, it should kind of attract your attention. Criminals always try to make themselves fit in, but because they're trying so hard, they stand out more than usual, right? People who are looking to do bad things, they're going to try to fit in as much as they can with their environment, but because they try so much, generally, they stand out more, right? They just look awkward in a situation. Hands, this is real important, right? Law enforcement, security, whenever we interact with somebody, that's the first thing we're looking at, that's the first thing we're paying attention to, most of the time is their hands. So basically, anybody that's going to be engaged in any kind of criminal activity, one or two things are going to happen. When they enter an area, their hands are already going to be in their clothes. Right? They're always, if they have a weapon on them, whatever the case is, their hands are already going to be in their clothes, probably on the weapon, ready to do whatever it is they want to do.
Right.
If they're not, generally what happens is as soon as they enter, their hands go into their clothes.
They're
Whether it's a
fidgeting.
pocket,
They're
fidgeting, they're
constantly
doing something.
adjusting.
Yeah.
Something I was kind of trained to look for when I was doing more of kind of like an executive protection type of deal for some celebrities I was doing security work for. If you see someone who's constantly fidgeting and shifting around stuff, well, what is he shifting around? You know, so I do a lot of concealed carry courses for concealed firearms. The best way to tell if somebody just got their permit is because they're constantly going to be fidgeting with their weapon.
Always adjusting it.
Yeah, checking it, making sure it's there. You know, if they have a t-shirt on, by the end of the day it's a dress because they're constantly pulling it down. But yeah, you know, so that's all things to look for.
So hands are real important.
Right.
If you can't see and we'll get into this here, if you can't see the hands, like in a crowd, what you want to look for is the shoulders. All right. Anytime anybody needs to do anything with their hands, if they have to draw a weapon, they have to draw the shoulder back.
If they're gonna
If
throw
they
a
want to
punch,
throw a punch, they got to draw the shoulder
throw the
back.
shoulder.
So if you can't see the hands in a crowd, we always tell people watch the shoulders. The shoulders will tell you basically what the hands are getting ready to do.
And that can go good with when there's festivals and stuff here.
Right.
You know, once again, you're not trying to be oversensitive and not welcoming and you know, too aggressive with people, but just pay attention, especially when there's new people on property or new people around. It's not about being unwelcoming, but there needs to be a level of, okay, I need to vet you as far as who you are and what your dealings are, you know, why you're here. So
We get into aggressive, erratic behavior. You know, the best way to explain this is that guy that kind of gets in your face, right? He starts yelling at you, you know, he starts getting kind of aggressive, he's in your face. Basically what he's doing, he's either trying to cause a scene or distract, or he's working himself up to do whatever it is that he's initially planning on doing.
right, it's like you ever see like the Macho Man stuff where two guys they're trying to fight, but no one's really fighting. They're just kind of yelling and they're bumping chests. So they're trying to build themselves up to that point.
Yeah. And it could be nothing more than just an
Distraction.
distraction
Yeah.
to just cause a scene or whatever. But you know, it's something you need to be aware of. Also, erratic behavior. So we kind of talked about this earlier. That's that unusual, strange behavior that just isn't appropriate for the situation that they're in. Those should kind of raise some flags, and you know, that's the guy you either need to. And it could be a medical disorder, it could be a psychological disorder, right? We have a lot of that going on in the country now. And law enforcement, security personnel, we're always dealing with it now. So they're just things that you need to kind of be aware of and look forward. If you do see it, that just means your attention just kind of gravitates to it, and you just need to pay attention to it.
Mental note, it's in the file cabinet. It's there if you need it.
Right.
It's not going to be a surprise, you know.
Bulges in clothing, right? We kind of talked about that with new people that are concealed carry, stuff like that. You know, all too often weapons will cause bulges in, you know, what we call printing, right?
Right.
You can see like the very butt of the grip and all this other stuff. Or you'll see people that you can tell their clothes are tailored, right? Maybe they're a little bigger in the chest. That's probably because they got a shoulder holster or something on. They don't want the gun to print or whatever. So, you know, things you want to look at. But we also have to be aware that it could just be a cell phone, right? Everybody wears cell phones on
Everybody's
their
got a big
belt.
cell phone.
You got a shirt, you know, but you know, we have to be.
You got to be aware.
You just got to understand.
Yeah, and what I usually tell my people when I through the class for the concealed carry, just because I notice somebody's carrying a weapon, I'm not automatically going to go to red.
Right.
Right? I'm not going to freak out. If I'm in a restaurant and I happen to notice somebody is carrying something, right? I'm not going to freak out because, you know, that doesn't mean that they're a bad person. That just means maybe they're aware also. And that's one of the things. It's about being aware. Not many people are paying attention for that type of stuff. I'm paying attention to that because it's kind of what my job is, kind of in the scope of what I've been doing. You know, Anthony's paying attention to that, same reason. Right. But most people walk around and, oh, that's just a cell phone. Or if you do notice that it is, you know, just make a mental note. But that goes back to being aware of the situation and your surroundings,
I
right?
was just going to ask you this question. I mean, just because you see somebody, like you said, who just got a permit and they're fidgeting around, you just become aware, but you don't overreact.
Right, you don't overreact. Yeah.
You just log it, pay attention to it, see what's going on.
Yeah, because
You may be able to tell within just a few moments of going, oh yeah, he's just a new guy with a concealed carry.
Yeah.
You know, because
I mean,
his behavior doesn't really change or is different than what's going on around him. He's just kind of fidgeting, then he's right back into the normal flow of things.
right.
That could be.
Do we need to post signs that that guns are not allowed. We wouldn't post except we're authorized, but, they're like in banks and churches, a lot of
Here's-
places, you know,
Because we've
guns
had a
aren't
debate on
allowed.
this, can I just bring?
Do you need to post that though? Or
Yeah.
do you just go up and tell the person?
Because we've had a discussion here about, at one point, we want to put up no, you know, weapons, no guns. And then other people say, well, once you do that, that's the kind of things that people with guns who are looking for an opportunity for a shooting, they want to see that, they don't have guns here.
So that's,
So what is that, what is your thinking on that?
so I would say kind of a two situation deal, right? So let's take the base I work on. Only certain people are required to have firearms on this base. And we're even issued our firearms when we get there. That's one of my jobs, is to issue people their firearms. If you have a certain amount of people who are authorized to carry, and a certain amount of people, and a sign that says no one else, you know, can come on property, then you're kind of okay if everybody's in agreement with that. But if you just have a strict policy, there will be no firearms on property, then you're kind of opening yourself up for a can of worms, because criminals don't follow signs. They don't pay attention to signs. They don't follow laws. That's why they're criminals. It's just like, not to get, you know, too into it, but it's just like the whole, you know, banning guns. Well, criminals don't follow laws. That's why they're criminals. A criminal is going to get a hold of a firearm whether he wants to or not. Just because someone deems, hey, you know, you can't have this, well, that's like, you know, the kid who wants a cookie out the cookie jar, and when his mom's not looking, he goes and climbs up on the counter and grabs a cookie out of it. Just because you tell somebody they can't do something doesn't mean they won't do it. So, as a whole, right, as a group, if everyone decides, okay, we don't want any outsiders to come on property with firearms, but to have maybe a security team who is, or like a reaction team who is deemed to have on property, that would be a safe way to do it. Because yeah, you don't want people you don't know their background, they haven't been vetted, to just show up with firearms, right? Because you don't know what their intention is. But the signs aren't really going to, a sign is a piece of paper. That's not really going to stop anybody.
Right.
So,
The only thing that a sign really does, and this is my opinion, the only thing a sign really does is it just tells anybody who has ill will
intent.
or ill intent. If you have a sign, that just tells him nobody here has a gun. So
That's not necessarily true.
it's not true, but psychologically, in the way they think if you have a no guns allowed or a no gun zone, right, they're going to automatically assume and think that nobody here has one.
right.
So this is just my philosophy, and I deal a lot with, we talked about earlier, mindset and everything else. It's that kind of that psychological issue. My train of thought is, if you don't have a sign, then to him there's an unknown. He don't know if anybody doesn't have a gun here. He doesn't know that nobody has a gun here. He doesn't know. So that may make that individual think longer, do I want to come try this in a community
Well,
such
can I
as yours
just
and everything
inquire
else?
a little bit more on that? Then the point is that if we have a sign and we've stated we don't want anyone coming onto our property with a gun. You can own a gun, but you can't be on our property with a gun.
Right.
So then something occurs, now legally, now we've announced that, so with a law enforcement officer, would that go in our favor then if this person comes on the property with a gun? If we haven't stated that we don't want someone on the property with a gun.
So here's the deal.
Go ahead.
You want to catch this?
So my question would be, in this instance, this is considered private property, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, just like in Louisiana, we're an open carry state, right?
Mississippi is constitutional carry.
All right. So, just like going into Walmart. So in the state of Louisiana, I can carry a gun as long as it's visible anywhere I want in the state. There's some legal
Guidelines
exceptions,
and
right,
stuff,
where I
but
can't, like banks and
for
stuff
the
like
most
that.
part.
But if I go into a retailer that doesn't have a sign that says no guns allowed or anything like that, but I walk in there and a manager walks up to me and says, you need to leave because we don't allow guns in here, legally, I have to leave now,
Correct.
because that's considered private property.
And and that's
So
where they're
the
gonna get
owners
you.
or the managers of private property, they can dictate whatever they want to allow on their property, it doesn't matter. So if you tell somebody to leave because they have a firearm, and you tell them at that point, we don't allow firearms here, you need to either go stow it or leave, and they don't, well, then they're breaking the law, because they're,
Right.
it's called
And-
remaining after being forbidden.
And the law that they will be breaking will be trespassing.
Yeah.
That's something, because see, that's kind of that whole thing. So they're not gonna really get you with the gun thing, right? They're not gonna get you for having the firearm, but they're gonna get you for trespassing. That's kind of the way that works. So, to answer your question, not really. It's not really gonna work in your favor. And my thing is the odds, right? I don't like to play the odds. I don't like to be like, okay, well, you can't have this here, but we got it, and you don't know we have it. So if anything happens, we're going to be able to react, and you don't know we have it, so now we're going to react. Like you're kind of playing the odds with that. Whereas if there's that gray area and no one kind of has an idea, well, you really don't know what you're walking into, and that might kind of give you more of a, I'm going to put this, more of a sense, an element of surprise if something does happen.
But wait a minute, I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, this point is that, so we respect people's Second Amendment rights, but in a spiritual festival, we don't necessarily, it's uncomfortable to see somebody walking around with a firearm. And it may, maybe not to me or you, but to some of the people here that are practicing quiet meditation, they see someone with a gun. It's sort of like, what's wrong with restriction? So if we say we would appreciate if you don't, you can have a concealed weapon, not a,
Well, and that's the whole deal too. So, concealed weapon, right? If you're carrying a concealed handgun, it's the point of it's to be concealed. That's for your protection. I don't recommend people to open carry, because to me that makes you the first target.
Right.
If I'm a bad person and I'm gonna do bad stuff, I'm probably lazy, okay? And I want the easy route, and the easiest thing for me to do before I do my bad stuff is take out this person who's walking around with a gun on his hip, right? So I'm not trying to announce to everybody I have a weapon on me. Hey, if you notice it, fine. If you don't, also fine, right? But if I'm a bad guy, maybe I'm a bad guy who actually has been doing this for a while, and I notice, hey, this guy walking around with the big gun strapped to him, that's my first person I'm going to take out, right? So maybe to kind of go into that, it's not about not having them, but not being open, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, then you don't know.
But we can assume now, though, what you just told us is that in this state, if someone has a gun, they can have a concealed weapon and be on our property.
Well, here's the thing. So I would have to actually have to go into the actual law on how the property thing works. So it's like for Louisiana. If I was gonna go inside of a church in Louisiana, the pastor or the priest would have to know that I have a firearm on me, right? It used to be where you had to take an extra 8-hour course, an 8-hour of tactical training to be able to carry a firearm in a place of worship. So, just because of the seriousness of it and everything going on, they don't want just anybody to just be able to carry. But the laws have kind of changed a little bit with that, where, as long as the pastor knows and he's okay with it, then you can carry. I don't recommend people to open carry. To me, I think you're making yourself a target, and now you're kind of daring people. It's one of those, like, look what I got, what are you going to do about it type of things. So I definitely, that's something I don't recommend anyone to do, and people can do what they want. It's just something I don't recommend any of my students to do, or, I'm not going to do that. Even though it's my law, even though it's my right, I'm not gonna do it, so.
Did you have a question, Madeline? Somebody had their hand up over here.
Yes, wouldn't it be better for temple members that are licensed to carry to have a specific place where they worship, when there's a festival or it's a day of worship where many of the members would be here, that they have a designated place to keep their arms, even if, they don't want to take a chance on it being shown on their body, to know where they are in the worst case scenario, so that everyone is not totally defenseless because you don't have arms
Good point.
anywhere, that those that are licensed to carry
Mhm.
knows where they can get their hands on
So,
land.
good point with that. So if they're licensed to carry,
Yeah.
and if they're part of the community, and they've been vetted, right, you know their intention, which, let's face it, when you get down to it, you really don't know anyone's intention, right? You can have maybe a 99% sure of someone's intention, but people surprise you, right? People have bad intentions, and sometimes they don't let it on, or they don't let it out until their intentions is actually, they're gonna do something. If they're allowed to carry on property and they're part of the security team or whoever's deemed allowed to carry, then they probably should have it on them. Because if it's like, okay, well, if something happens, we're gonna run to zone A to go pick up our weapon. By the time they get to zone A, the carnage and it's not quick enough.
So the best case scenario is to have it totally concealed where it's not noticeable in case of
Correct.
the worst case scenario. Then
Yeah.
you're not totally defenseless.
You're not
If someone
defenseless.
comes here with a machine gun and just starts shooting people up in the church or on the grounds, which happens.
So, and I'm pretty sure Anthony would agree with me, the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Not to sound cliche, but you have to be committed. You have to be trained. You have to have training. You have to want to train. It's a perishable skill. So it's not like, hey, I'm just going to go and if we're talking firearms, I mean, because we can get into like self-defense training as far as like hand-to-hand or less than lethal, as far as like OC spray, stuff like that. But if we're talking firearms, you have to train. You have to train to stay proficient with it. If you're going to be carrying in that aspect, security-wise or in charge of protecting a group, right? You need to be trained up. You need to be better than the normal guy who's walking around carrying, because of the seriousness of the situation. And it's something you want to do. It's got to be something you want to do. Like, I can't force anyone to go and train. It has to be something you take upon yourself, that if you're interested in being, how they say, a protector of your flock, right, a sheepdog, you have to be willing. This is a commitment you have to do. Whereas you go and shoot 50 rounds a week, or or if you go and take some classes, or you go fly across the United States to go train with, Masad Ayub or somebody like that, right? It's about training, and it's all about mindset. So the training and the mindset kind of go hand in hand too, because it's always thinking about what could happen and running these scenarios, not just in your head, but now if you're part of the security team that's going to be in charge of protecting everybody, then now you need to practice that what if, that, okay, if I need to get to my weapon, how can I get to my weapon effectively, safely, and quickly, and take care of whatever problems. So that's a big part of it. And it's not for everybody.
Right.
It's not some, I mean, it's not something that everybody wants to be involved with. At the end of the day, no one is responsible for your safety but you. That's just kind of the way I look at it. I'm responsible for my own safety. If I'm not paying attention to my surroundings and something bad happens, well, I should have been paying more attention. So, all right, back to the slides. I hope that kind of answered that question.
Yes, yes.
And look, your question back to, should we post or not post, I think that's really gonna have to be a discussion the community's gonna have and come to a kind of a consensus, whichever way that y'all decide, to handle that part.
But you
What would you
that-
think
that
about a sign that says only authorized personnel allowed to carry?
But a
I'm
criminal's
I'm
not
kinda
gonna
okay
know
with that
who
one
they
because
are.
Criminal's not gonna,
That-
They're not
that's
gonna
still
know which
kinda-
one of you are the soldiers.
but if
And
you,
which
if
one
you,
are
if you
not.
don't post it or let everybody know, then you got, there are a lot of people that carry guns, so then you got anyone and everyone carrying guns.
Right.
A lot of them untrained, who just,
Right.
That's
like guns.
And that's kind of my deal with that. That's kind of my feelings on that, because you do have so many people who are walking around with firearms who are untrained, or who have the minimal amount of training. Like I said, not everyone's kind of cut out for this. I appreciate everybody that wants to, go ahead and do their Second Amendment thing, and all that's great, but when you're talking about any aspect of a community, or a situation like this community, that could be that could turn into a liability really quick also. So, if there are gonna be people who are designated to carry the firearms, they need to go seek out training, or they need to, whether it's through me, whether it's through Anthony, whether it's through our organization, or, like I said, anybody, just someone's reputable, go spend the money, spend the time, and get trained, because even with the concealed carry, it's a very basic class, that now you're deemed to carry a weapon concealed. It covers the basic amount, the minimal. So, if you're going to carry as far as protection-wise, security for a group, you need to get trained. So,
Can we move on?
yeah. Kind of get long-winded, kind of get off subject, but good questions.
All right, active shooter, so this kind of shifts into, the big thing we're seeing now across the country with places of worship, active shooters, people coming in, places of business, schools. So, the United States Department of Homeland Security defines an active shooter as an individual actively engaging in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there is no pattern or method to their selection of the victims that they end up shooting. So basically, an active shooter event equals an attempted mass murder. That's basically what it is. All right, for lack of better terms, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to kill
As many people as
as many
possible.
people as they can possibly can in a short amount of time, or whatever time that they have to be able to do it.
Which, 30-minute response time at best.
Yeah. So the next slide you're going to see come up goes from, I think, the year 2000. It's statistics. You're going to see these little yellow and red dots and all that come up. The smaller dots is less than 4 victims. The bigger circles are plus 4 or more victims. The yellow ones, I think, are knives. I think the other one, the red, are firearms. And it just kind of shows you where they're all occurring. Right? So yellow is knife, yellow is gun, red is knife,
Yeah.
blue is car, and then other is they use some other kind of form.
Which, like I said, it doesn't always have to go to that extreme, right?
Right.
Of a firearm. Like, a lot of people get killed with knives. So, cars.
So this kind of spans from 2000 to I think 2016 or 2017. But it shows you where all of these instances have occurred. You can see most of them are done.
Well, of course, a lot of them in the most populated areas, but.
Correct, right? So you look at most of
See
them are
right
all
in
on
Jackson,
the east
Mississippi
and
or
west coast.
something.
So over that course of those years, basically, yeah, that was a truck thing. You're looking at 242 victims over the course of years from those kind of instances.
And that's not even current, that's
That's not even current. You're
2016.
talking 4 years have elapsed since then, so, you know, you add in the other things that have occurred, so those numbers have kind of gone up.
Was it just me, did it seem like there was each year, it seemed to be a little bit more each year?
It depends in certain locations, yeah. You'll see that, especially in your more populated areas, your large metropolitan areas. And, you know, you look at areas, you know, also where they have really, really strict gun laws, you see the numbers go up too, you know, because
Because criminals don't
Chicago.
follow
they
laws.
don't have, you know, basic individuals don't have the readiness or the ability to, you know, legally carry, for that matter.
Right. And a lot of it's got to do with that whole mindset of you're your own response team, right? You're in charge of your own safety. That's if you can allow, you know, be allowed to be in charge of your own safety. Like I said, it doesn't always have to go from one extreme to the other. I'm not saying everybody's got to be walking around packing, but just to be in charge of your own safety means being aware of your situation, mean having a backup plan or having a game plan if something happens. You know, and it could be something as simple as run. Don't just sit there and be a victim. A lot of people have become victims because they've allowed themselves to be victims. Like, walk away, leave. Like, depending on the situation, right? You don't have to stay there and be victimized. You can literally just get up and walk away. And I don't think people realize that sometimes, is because they're so overwhelmed with what's happening, because most people aren't used to aggression or, you know, that whole interpersonal skill that everyone's lacking nowadays because no one communicates. Sometimes all it takes is for you to just, you know, walk away. And that's not the end all be all, right? Because sometimes that might escalate the situation. But at that point, it's not going to get any better. So, you know, if you take yourself out of that situation, so we do some vehicle defense type of stuff, and one of the things I teach is drive off. Like, if you can just drive off, drive away. You're in a vehicle. No one says you have to be carjacked if you just drive away. So, I mean, if you see someone who looks like a threat walking towards your vehicle, drive away. You know, it's that simple.
Right.
You win 100% of the fight you're not in. So, you know, and it's a little bit of planning too. Don't put yourself in bad situations. Don't go to places where you know this is a bad situation. You know, and as far as, you know, a community like this, no one's here has bad intentions. But like, you know, festivals and stuff like that going on, who knows who's going to show up. So it kind of only makes sense, and it's kind of liability wise to kind of have an SOP, to kind of have like standard operating procedures of what ifs, you know, and this is how we would handle things. So
So I got a question for y'all. Where do you think most active shooters locations where they occur?
What do you mean
In a crowd?
location?
Like at schools or someplace like
Yeah,
that?
so where do you think most of them happen?
Well, it seems like it started off at the post office, but then from there, schools,
Wherever they see there is no
and churches.
Okay, so generally the number one thing that we hear when we ask this question is everybody says schools, right? Why is that?
Because it's big news.
Because that's what they're showing on the news constantly. All right, if you really looked at some of the other
What about ballrooms?
offbeat kind of news providers, you'll see that there's all kinds of active shooters going on. Right?
all types of stuff going on that just,
But
it's not
if
fancy.
you look at locations of attack, the majority of them occur in commerce areas, right? So businesses, post offices, places of business, malls, those kinds of things. Next is education, but if you combine all those other three together, they far outweigh educational locations or school shootings. But that's the only thing that the news will
It's
post, right? Because they're
It's
trying to,
sensationalism.
So churches would fall into other.
churches would fall into other,
yeah.
given the fact, okay, So this slide this is up to 2015. So I'm sure if you look statistically wise now,
That number's probably gone up.
yeah, churches have definitely
in the
gone
past
up,
couple years.
right? It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Because it is, and it's always been, you know, let's face it, most of the wars that have happened in the world has been because of what? Religion. So,
What about domestic violence? Does that ever spill over into an active shooter situation involving outside?
Actually, we're about to get right into
in
that.
a heartbeat.
Yep. So if you look at the attacker's connection to where these things have occurred, you're looking at almost about a 50-50 split. So 50% of the time, whoever's committing that act has some connection with that location that they're doing. It's either an employer, it's a former employee, it's a spouse, right? Whoever. Generally, they're 50-50. There's a connection there as to why they're doing what it is they're doing in that location. All right. The other 50 is they're just
They're
looking
just
to do
there.
bad things,
You know, they're just there to do bad stuff.
and they're looking for easy targets, basically. All right. So just some locations, right? The Orlando, Florida, the Pulse Club. That guy was a regular patron at that club. That was his connection to that one. The Las Vegas shooting. There really hasn't been a true connection made, but the thing with this one is this is an individual who was in an elevated position shooting down into a crowd. So what we tell people is, you know, in this instance, we're going to get into it a little later, but this would definitely be a situation where you would want to avoid and deny. You want to get out of the area as quick as you can and get into locations or behind things that can actually protect you and stop bullets and things of that nature.
Right. A lot of
people in this group, they hear the gunshots, they hit the ground, and now they're just a stationary target. And you know, shooting from an elevated position into a big crowd, you don't have to be real accurate. All you got to do is send rounds down range, and you're going to hit something. Right? And we saw what the aftermath of that was: 59 people. You know. Then you got the New York City one where the guy took a U-Haul truck and drove down the bicycle lane. Right. Again, that's just a guy who just wanted to do bad things. There wasn't any real connection that was figured out on that one. He wasn't trying to hurt any one particular person or group of people. Then we have the Sutherland Springs Church, right? This is that individual that went in there. He killed 26, wounded 20 more. He was linked with Antifa.
What is Antifa again?
Antifa is the anti-fascist.
Anti-fascist, yeah. And there's a big section of them in Mississippi and Louisiana, because we actually had about, I want to say it was 27 of them disguise themselves as a wedding party and show up to the range for a day of training.
You're kidding.
So,
What does it mean?
yeah, this was last year. This was the whole thing last October. They showed up they said, hey, we got a wedding party coming. And so I wasn't even there. One of the other guys that worked there was there kind of watching everything. And yeah, they show up, they sign the releases, and next thing you know, they're putting on their gear, and and the thing about Antifa is they're organized, and we know they're organized because we've seen this with our own eyes, and we've seen it. It's not like, oh, it's a bunch of people in their mom's basement, talking smack on the internet. They're organized. They're training. They have medical kits. They have body armor. They have assault rifles, or not assault rifles, but they have AR-15s with binary triggers. They're doing stuff.
They're extreme left.
So what is
Yeah, they're kind of
anti-fascist?
extreme left.
So who are they saying is fascist? The government or what?
Oh, everybody. The government.
Everybody who doesn't agree with their way of thinking,
Right.
basically. And put it, I mean,
Yeah, just
point
everybody.
blank.
Yeah, I mean, sets fires and cause havoc.
So why did they pick out that church? Because they were...
Well, this was that one individual. He was also, if I'm not mistaken, this was the guy that was also relieved from the Air Force
Yeah.
for some disciplinary reasons.
Mental illness.
Mental illness was
Yeah.
another factor in this.
Which
The-
plays
the
a
big-
big part in a
The
lot
big
of
thing
this.
with this is what made him stop was the guy across the street, the neighbor, who came out with his AR-15.
Right.
And then chased him down a road where he later, I think he took his own life.
Yeah.
After he wrecked his car.
Because this guy had body armor.
He did have body armor, yep.
Which, now you're talking about, that brings it back to training. Now you're talking about a different beast. Because, 5 to the chest is not gonna put this person down, right? Now what? So that kinda goes back with the, if you're gonna carry, you gotta be training.
Right. So number of deaths, all right? So in a situation like that, there's really basically two factors that determine, unfortunately, how many deaths you may have in a situation like that. The first one is how quickly can the police arrive to your location. In a metropolitan area like Picayune, Slidell,
New Orleans,
in a really good situation, you're talking 3 minutes.
in a bad
That's 3
situation,
minutes, but
it's a long 3 minutes. A lot can happen in 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So, in our department, we used to have where you had to do a 3-minute fight, a boxing fight with an instructor for 3 minutes. And
3 minutes is a long time.
That's a long time.
There's an eternity for that
Yeah, it is.
recruit to do that with an instructor. 3 minutes is a long time. So, one of the things is how long does it take for the police to get here to then start trying to put an end to what's going on, right? The other big factor is target availability. So think about schools. Let's go back to schools. Most times when things like that happen, they're either it's a recess or a change in classrooms, right? And where all the kids go.
No.
They're all in hallways, right? The big funnel. Target availability is huge, right? Or they're isolated in a room that's, again, you have a, I hate to say it this way, but it's a captured audience, right?
Yeah, you're shooting fish in
You're
the
going
basket.
in, there's only one entrance, only one exit. So, the schools react to active shooter differently. They believe in lock in, lock down, and lock out, right? Like I said, I have a 16-year-old daughter. I've told her time and time again, you hear gunshots, I don't care how you get out of the school, get out.
Go.
If you got to break through a window and get out, get out. I don't care what teachers are telling you, get out. Because guess what? If you're not there, you can't be what?
Shot.
You can't be a
You
victim.
win 100% of the fights you don't show up to.
So these are the two real big factors that determine, you know, the number of deaths that may occur in an active shooter, right? How quick the police get there, and of course, what kind of environment or target availability. So there's three stresses or three, stages of stress or emergency response that every one of us go through when something like this happens or something big happens. There's denial, deliberation, we have a deliberation period, and then we have a decisive moment where we finally make our mind up and go, this is what I gotta do.
Now, I want everyone to think about this, all right? As we're going through this, seriously think about these stages, right? Because this kind of affects more than just that situation. This affects all aspects of life. You're always kind of processing things in your head as they're happening, right? So
this really goes back to what we kind of discussed earlier, which was mindset, right? What is your mindset in a day-to-day living in situations like this? Mm-hmm. So denial, of course, right? Many people, they don't admit that they're a disaster. They underestimate the severity of what's going on, which then causes them to delay their actions or things like that. So the question is
that a gunshot? Oh no, that's just fireworks, right?
So the question is,
a car backfiring.
why do we act this way as humans? Well, number one, we like normalcy, right? We are creatures of habit. We like normalcy. So the brain gets lazy. And it gets fixed in the existing plans and the routines of the days and all this other stuff. And it tries to define a disaster, something that's really bad above what our normal or baseline is. It tries to logically figure out what's going on and dispel it because we want normalcy. So again, right, what he said,
Fireworks.
you talk to
That's a truck backfiring. No,
you talk to individuals that have been in active shooter survivors, and one of the first things they tell you is, we thought it was fireworks. They sounded like fireworks. There's a distinct difference between what a gunshot sounds like and what fireworks sounds like.
What about, in the city, you may not, I guess you do hear a lot of shots. But
You hear a lot of
you
shots.
always hear shots.
Right,
It's not unusual to hear shots.
right. So
Well,
those individuals, it's kind of
a
a
mental note.
Yeah, it's
Where is these shots coming from?
It's kind of their normalcy, right?
I'm not going that way because that's where my shots are. That's where the shots are coming from. I think I'm going to go this way. Things like that. And if the closer it is, then, you know, that's where that level is
And
getting.
you also know if it should be coming from there or not.
Right.
The other reason is social proof, right? We're all social animals. We look to each other for clues about how we should behave in certain situations, especially in situations that are new to us or ambiguous. You know, we don't really know what's going on. There have been studies done and little social experiments done before where they've taken individuals, put them on a street as if they're injured, and they look to see what people do when they pass. And it's amazing how many people that will just keep walking, or they'll stand there and they'll look and try to, you can see them looking around at other people like, okay, what do we, and a lot of them don't act until somebody else acts, right? So we're looking for responses from other people.
Or nowadays, they put their cell phone out
Get the cell
and they're
phone out.
videoing it and live streaming.
So this kind of goes back to mindset where
Yeah.
we need to have a response already formulated in our brain. Okay, if this happens, this is what I need to do. Or these are some options that I need to be doing once I realize this is going on.
That normalcy bias, I call it tunnel vision
Or blinders.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Because like with horses, you got to put blinders on them sometimes in Texas when we were training them because they can't see what's going on over here. That means it doesn't exist.
It doesn't
Right.
affect them, right?
But it's going on over there.
And that's the problem with a lot of people nowadays too, is because they're walking around like that and they don't want to admit that things are happening like this.
Yeah.
But as you can tell, statistic wise, like we didn't just dream up all this stuff last night. Like you can fact check it, and you know, this is happening.
Yeah.
This is happening today. This is happening tomorrow. This happened yesterday. Like these things are ongoing.
The next one that you're going to move into the next phase is your deliberation phase, right? Now this is affected by a couple things. So this is kind of a problem because now your stress levels are up. So your brain, if you're not used to kind of having preconceived actions or reactions to certain things, if you're not used to working that through your brain or actually training for it,
You're not
we're
used
talking
to
about training.
processing it.
Your stress
Like,
level
what am I
goes
going
up.
to do?
Your stress level goes up, which causes your heart rate to go up, which causes your blood pressure to go up, and which kind of limits your ability to act or do things, right? So stress is a big thing. The other part is also, this is where fear kind of enters the equation, because now you're coming to the realization that this is a really bad situation, life or death is now probably happening, right? So fear sets in, stress sets in, and the brain doesn't work real well when both those things set in. You tend to do things, irrational things, or not act, and we'll get into some of that here in a minute.
So that promotes the denial, the fear.
It does.
And inaction.
Yeah.
But it helps add to
And
your
it greatly
denial.
reduces your process to getting to the next step,
To
which is a decisive
Right.
decision, right? So, this is a really good example of a decisive decision.
See if it works. Hopefully.
No, no
No,
speaker.
no sound.
So, real quick, this is, you remember the three individuals in Paris that were on the train? They had the one shooter with the AK-47 on the train and three guys attacked him. Two guys were military, and I think one was, no, I don't think one was, or two were from the one branch, one was from another. But this guy gets on a train with an AK-47, shoots a couple people, and these three guys made the decisive decision to charge this guy as a group and took him down. I think one or two of them got shot in the process, but they were able to get to him, stop the killing, disarm him, and those are the three individuals right there on the end. But this is a great example of a decisive moment. The other one would be on 9/11, the flight that crashed in Pennsylvania. That crew got up and attacked those terrorists because they didn't want to be, they kind of knew where they were going. So they
Goes
made
back
that
with
decisive
that.
decision.
Look, this is not getting any better. We don't see the situation getting any better, then we need to react. And when you react, you have to react. You got to hit hard, you got to hit fast, you got to be determined.
It kind of goes back to mindset and
Yeah.
everything else, right? You have to have that mindset established where when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Everything's off.
Focus on everything.
Yeah, everything's off the table at that point. You're there with one specific purpose at that point. Everyone kind of needs to be on the same page. You know, you can't lackluster when you're doing stuff like that.
So how do we respond? Well, you've probably heard this before: avoid, deny, and defend. Also, you probably heard run, hide, and fight. And I'm sure you probably, those are the real common terms that are all over the place now dealing with this stuff. So denial, right? We're right back to denial. So don't deny it. If you hear gunshots, we all know gunshots are a distinct sound. Then if you hear gunshots, guess what? It's gunshots.
Gunshots.
You need to go straight to deliberation and then making some choices and doing some things. All right, so playing dead. You've heard this before. Some people want to. I wish I had video, audio on this one.
Quite possible.
This is a young lady who was involved in a school shooting, and I believe it was the one at Virginia Tech. She was in a classroom, the first classroom that the shooter came in. They heard shots down the hallway. Teacher opened the door and kind of looked out, saw what was going on, immediately closed the door, told everybody to get down, and within seconds the gunman came in the room, shot the teacher, and then basically just walked to the classroom, shooting people. This young lady laid there on the floor, playing dead, did not realize it until the police got there and gave a triage code to her of code red, which means that her life was in danger. She had been shot several times and did not realize she had been shot 3 times because she was laying there playing dead. So think about that for a moment, right? We're talking about stress, we're talking about fear and everything else. So when you've got that much adrenaline and everything else, getting shot, you're probably not going to realize you've been shot.
Right. Which
And
kind of
that's
goes
exactly
back
what
to the
happened with
whole, statistically wise, between 4 to 6 rounds per person.
Wow.
So she survived, of course, because she was able to give this interview. But you know, she laid there. She recounts in here that when the police did come in, they immediately were going, "Hey, I got several blacks in here." It wasn't the color of people that were there; it was the fact that they were dead, several of them. And then when they got to her, they initially called her yellow, and then he changed it real quick to a red, and that's when she finally realized. Because this whole time she's looking at a friend, one desk over, staring at her, and she realized what black meant. Because that female, her friend, had passed away, was killed in that incident. And she never realized she was shot 3 times. So hiding or playing dead doesn't work. You're just a stationary target at that point. All right? That's really the takeaway for this. The other one is hiding in hope. All right? We talk about, you know, run, hide, fight. That's kind of the thing, but well, we don't really mean just hide. If you're just hiding and hoping that you're not found, there's a couple problems with this. One is probably whatever you're hiding behind ain't going to stop bullets.
Ain't gonna stop the bullet.
Bullets are going to go right through it. Number 2, once you're found, where are you going to go? There's nowhere for you to go at that point. You're found, you're going to be, you're basically another stationary victim. All right? So, we want to avoid and run. All right? Once you realize if you have the ability that some really bad stuff is going on, get out. If you're not there, you're not a target, you can't be a victim. All right? So that means that whatever location you're in, you need to realize what your exits are, where they're at, how you can get out, and then once you get out, call 911 to get that response coming. All right. So,
When you say though, leave, I mean, if you say that school's locked down and you know they don't leave, and you tell your daughter to leave. So it's one thing if one person's leaving, but what do you do in a small space where all of a sudden there's 40 people rushing out, or you got a place in here where there's either through this funnel here in the back or right there, and everybody just runs. I mean, it can
It can lead to a...
we do let me do this real quick.
Yeah.
So, when we actually hold an active shooter class, usually the instructor will come in and he'll pick out 2 people. He'll say, which one of y'all think you're the best shot in here? So, you know, usually some guy raises his hand. Okay, go stand over there. You say, who thinks you're the worst shot? Or usually, you know, somebody raises their hand, so we put them over there. And they take them out the room, and they give them an airsoft gun with little plastic pellets in it, right? The instructor tells the class, right, when they come through the door, whenever they come through, because it's going to be unannounced, but when they start shooting, I want y'all to hide. Hide or play dead. And it's usually the guy who says, or the person who says, I'm the worst shot. They've never handled a gun before. That's the one we have come in. And guess how many people they end up shooting?
It's a bunch, huh?
Almost all of them. Then we take the best shooter, the guy who says he's got all kinds of weapons training, all that other stuff, and we tell him, all right, when he comes in the door, of course you don't know when it's going to happen, I want everybody to get up and run. Move, hit the exits, do whatever you can do, just move. All right? He comes in shooting, guess how many he gets?
Few?
Fewer.
Oh.
2 or 3, maybe. Right?
Because there's so much motion.
There's so much motion, it's harder to hit a moving target than it is to hit a
But
stationary.
isn't a school with one door? And
It
it's the door that the guy came in.
Well,
Yeah,
so
but there's some other things that schools have done, because they talk about lockout, lock in, and lock, hide, do whatever. You have a lot of schools now that are putting a lot of barriers between, or they're putting a lot of obstacles up now. Like when they close the door, there's commercial door stops and things that they then lock into place where they can't get the door open.
Right.
There's also, schools are getting real smart now in where they're only having one access point. In other words, whoever's coming in at school has to come through this one spot, and generally it's right into the main office area where they can be identified and vetted right away.
Right.
I go to my daughter's high school, I can't go anywhere. I go to the office and they say, hold on, we'll call her.
yeah.
And they know I'm a cop.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even get to go anywhere. I just, okay.
And
Which is great, I love it.
And even the exit thing, like, there's a lot of exits in this building right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you go right through the
We got
window.
windows.
A lot of windows. A lot of people don't like to use that though, but it takes nothing to go through a piece of glass. Like, break the glass, jump through. Like, this is your life you're doing. This is your life you're trying to save. If I get cut on my way out, I'll go get stitches afterwards, but I'll be alive to get the stitches.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard, there was one school after, it was one of the school shootings, they talked about putting buckets of rocks in the classrooms. Did y'all hear any of
So
that?
you can throw rocks at.
So the buckets of rocks were designed that all the kids would grab a rock, and if the guy made entry, they would all throw rocks at him, which is actually a good idea. Because if you have objects being thrown at you, can you get real good target acquisition? No, and then it gives other people the possibility to charge and then tackle and start to control.
And
So it's actually as cheap as it is, it's actually a pretty good idea.
and there you go,
I mean,
right?
we've all been hit with rocks.
It's that whole.
It hurts.
I mean, you got to be able to get your weapon up to get a shot off.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be able to get your weapon on target to be able to get a shot on target. You got 3 or 4 people coming at you. It's not as easy as you think. A lot of people have the misconception, I'm just going to pull my gun and shoot. Well, you got to get to your gun first. And that's going to have some, the other guy's going to have kind of something to do with that too, because if he's not allowing you to get to your weapon and get your weapon on target, you're not just going to pull your gun out and shoot. So,
So, I don't know if y'all saw the video as it was playing.
No.
This is the Jewish bodega in Paris where the shooters walked in and started shooting. And we're talking about avoid. These people, as soon as they can, they're hitting the door. They're gone. He's not a victim now. The other one that just fell in the street. People down the street hear gunshots. They're running away, right? So they're not victims. So if you can get out, get out. Right? Whatever that process may be that you have to get out, if you have that opportunity or that ability, get out. And then once you're out, then you call 911, that gets that response coming.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So what do the kids do that go to these schools where they force the lockdown and they force them to stay?
Well,
And they live and they're in a 4-story building and they're on the 4th floor, whereas if they jumped out a window, they die.
well, there's another shooting that happened. I can't remember what it was. It was at a college. As a matter of fact, I think it was
in Texas?
I think it was a Virginia Tech shooting.
The Virginia
There was
Tech?
a 3-story building that the shooter took in. There was a class on the 2nd floor that several of the teachers and the students actually created a chain on the floor. They put their feet up against the door, and the next one put their feet on their shoulders all the way across the room till they hit the other wall. There were no windows in the door, so they couldn't see. So if they tried to push, they couldn't get through it because all that. And then the other students broke the window and they got out. They jumped from a second story.
Yeah, second story is all right. But
Yeah, third
fourth-
story is
fourth-
pretty bad too.
'cause
Fourth
my kids
story is
are-
kind of hairy, but
Yeah, but
But
my-
if they lock it down like where it's an electronic lock, you know, from the office to where that you can't get in or out of the door.
well, generally in schools now, they're moving towards that if there's an active shooter or something, that entire school shuts down.
Whole campus is
Every
down.
every
Yeah.
door gets locked.
Yeah, that's what
So
they did.
whoever's in there is in there. Whoever's outside can't get in
That's-
unless, of course, your law enforcement and everything else.
Right.
And like I said earlier, there are schools that are putting some other things in place, like these commercial door stops and things that once they do that and they close the door, there's a ton of them out there that there's no way you're going to gain access into that door.
Okay.
So
So in that case, the safest spot would be inside the classroom if the door is locked and they can't get in or out.
yeah, provided your schools. My suggestion is, you know, if you go to the school and ask, what is your procedure should an active shooter happen here?
Unfortunately, we know a lot because there's been 3 threats in the last year at their school because it's the biggest school. It's
And-
horrible. We get these texts all the time. Active threat,
Right.
school's on lockdown. Yesterday it was on lockdown.
and that's
Yeah, it's just terrifying as a parent. You get these texts.
So I would still go ask, okay, so you lock the school down, where do the kids go? Well, they go in their classroom and doors are closed, all right? Start asking some really,
Yeah.
you know.
y'all have commercial door stop systems that y'all put in barricading the doors. What do y'all do when you're in the class?
What is the structure like?
Yeah.
What type of doors do they have? What type of locks do they
Really?
have? Do they have windows?
Really pick their brain.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's all about kind of looking at the lay of the land and figuring, okay, I mean this building for example. I mean just because the doors are locked, that don't mean people can't get in. That doesn't mean someone can't come and shoot through the window.
Right.
So, you know, you got to kind of think out the box a little bit with this stuff too, as far as, you know, if I'm in here and someone out there decides that they're going to start opening fire in here, I need to go the opposite way and out and down the road, you know. It's about being prepared though, and knowing your exits, knowing the layout of everything, you know, realizing that, you know, that door's not going to stop a bullet. So, you know, things like that.
So when we're talking about avoiding and running, you know, you need to make sure you're also considering alternate exits, even those that may not seem like exits. Most people don't look at windows and go, that's an exit. You know, they look at, well, that's a window, I have to smash glass. Well, if you lift it up, there's a screen, you can bust through a screen and get out, right? But secondary, now this kind of goes with the whole stress thing and the fear kicking in, right? So I want you to, there's 2 people hunkered down in this corner right here, right? What's next to them?
A ladder.
Yeah. You got a ladder and an exit door that goes out into an alleyway or something like that.
Wow.
So here they are in a high-stress situation. People are probably getting shot or whatever, and these 2 people are in this back room, hunkered in a corner, where they can either get out on the roof or they can get out the door. But that goes to, right, that goes to stress, fear, the brains aren't thinking rationally, stuff like that. So your main exits may be clogged, right, because people are just trying to get out, right? So you need to be aware and be able to look for secondary alternative exits, even though they may not be conventional ones, right? If you can't get out or run, then we tell you to hide or deny. All right. Now, you say we don't want to hide and wait, right? So what we want to do is we want to get to a location. If this is what you have to do, lock the door and barricade it. Put all kinds of stuff in front of it. Do whatever you
Last
need.
case scenario, right? If you're
sure-
forced,
Yeah.
if you're forced, okay. So if we're forced and they're trying to come through that door, we're going to get as much stuff as we can and put it in front of that door.
Make sure you turn the lights out, right? Most individuals, if they don't see lights in their door, they think what? There's nobody in there, the door, you know, they'll try the door's locked, they're not gonna really exert, they're looking for easy stuff, right? So basically the mindset here is kind of out of sight, out of mind. However, when you're in this location, this kind of gives you a little bit more time to figure out exits, right? Are there windows in where you're at? Are there ladders that go somewhere? Are there exterior doors that I can maybe get through? So barricade it, right? Heavier is better. More is better. You know, door stops
Door
are
stops,
even
way better.
way better, right? Because it makes it really hard for anybody to get through the door.
Literal piece of wood,
Yeah.
you know, just a wedge, shove it under the.
So we'll take the same people in the same situation. They've already figured, you know, that they haven't realized the exits they have. But if they want to deny, they have an open door, right? They need to close that door. But there's other things in here, heavy objects. That's a pallet, I think, of dog food or something like that. And you got these heavy racks that they could at least move in front of the door to barricade, you know, to slow somebody or to stop somebody from getting in there to them. Which then would give them even more time to probably realize, hey, I have a ladder
Hey,
here.
we have doors, we can
Get
get
out
out
of
of
the door
here.
here, I can get out.
Right.
So, door stops, real, you know, even simple door stops, the little rubber ones are great. If you have like outward opening doors, you can get, you know, rope or whatever.
Belts.
Tie it around the
Something.
doorknob and then tie it off somewhere else, or stand there and just hold it. You know, get you a couple people stand there and hold it. That way they at least can't open it. And there are tons of commercial door stop systems out there now because of schools. You've got 2 or 3 that firemen have come up with. I mean, there are all kinds of them out there. All you got to do is go on and Google them, and you can find them. Yeah. But one thing is, once you've denied, right, and maybe you don't have any other exits, you need to kind of prepare yourself to fight, right, in case they do gain entry to the door. Most people, the typical reaction is that when I barricade that door over there, most people go where in the room? They go way away from the door. That's probably one of the worst things you can do. And here's why. If I, the shooter, am able to get through that door, and you guys are way over here, I have more
Easy target.
opportunity to shoot you or to do stuff. However, what we tend to tell people is you want to make sure you position yourselves closer to the door on the sides and prepare for their entry, because as soon as they enter, you can attack from both sides, and then then it's on. I mean, lack of a better term, that's where your mindset has to kick in, that if this is life
not
or
getting any
death,
better.
you're going to survive it.
You have to 100% commit to fight.
So you want to position yourself in real good areas. Make sure you grab the gun or the hands of the gun as they come in. You can throw something in their face. That's actually what they're doing. They have a blanket that they actually threw in the guy's face. What does that do? That distracts him, right? Gets his kind of, it screws his OODA loop up, and then prepare to fight. Shift your emotions. That simply means that you have to be prepared to go all the way, right? You have to be prepared to, I tell my guys,
take a bullet.
just get mad. Just get that mindset that you're going to walk away from this, even though you may be injured or something, you're going to walk away and you're going to live, you know, but you're going to stop whatever's happening. A lot of it goes to mindset. So basically, this is how things work, right? The attack starts. You have primary exits. If you got them and you get out, good. Avoid. Get out. Get away. If you don't have primary exits, then you want to deny or start looking for secondaries. Look for other exits. If you have other exits and you can get out, go. That's just another chance for you to avoid and get out and not be a victim. If no on the other exits, then you need to defend and prepare yourself to fight. All right, in case they do gain entry. And look, when we tell you to prepare for fight, grab whatever you think you can use as a weapon, and that's what you use. You know, if you don't, you know, if somebody's in there that doesn't have a firearm, you know, a tripod.
A chair.
I mean, there's a chair. There's,
Books.
throw stuff at her.
Yeah.
Distract him so you can then tap him or attack him or whatever, or her, whoever it may be. So when the police do arrive, this is basically how it works. All right, they're first. When they do show up and they gain entry, make sure you're following their commands, right? Because right now, all they're working on is that they know there's an active shooter. They know somebody was in here shooting people up. Their job right now is to stop the killing, right? So make sure that you follow their commands. Make sure that we talked about hands earlier, right? That's the first thing we want to see as a cop. We want to see
Hands.
We want to see these, right? And of course, don't move until they tell you to move, or, you know, do whatever it is that they instruct you to do from that point on. So this is our focus. When we show up, our number one job is to stop the killing. If there's an active shooting going on, in other words, when we get on scene and we hear gunshots, we're making a beeline to wherever those gunshots are, because our job, or their job, is to stop the gunshots, stop the kill. And then once all that's done, once they've stopped it, then they start working on evacuating injured and everything else, getting EMS personnel in there and all that. So medical-wise, your EMS is going to be delayed because most fire departments, most paramedic ambulances and all that, they're not going to enter a scene until the police have said it's safe to do so.
Right.
I can tell you in our parish, in our state, and many areas within the state, we do a lot of active shooter training with the fire department. We actually send in a team first to go stop, but immediately after that team goes in, there's another team that goes in with law enforcement and firemen in tow, and they're triaging as they're making their way through, while the other group is up front dealing with probably whoever's, you know.
Because seconds matter.
Seconds matter, right? So of course, active shooter, right? We talked earlier, means mass killing, right? People are going to be hurt. You know, you're going to have to. Everybody in here or whoever's involved is going to have to shift their mindset too to now start rendering aid as much as they can and everything else. So that's kind of what we were talking about earlier about that.
And
what are your training levels as far as medical goes and everything else? If you need more, you know, you need to
seek it out,
seek
and
more
find
training.
it,
You know, tourniquet training.
Whether
stuff
it's
of that nature.
the weapons thing or the medical thing, it's not everybody needs to, you know, not everybody's going to be the weapons person or the firearms person or the combative person, right? And not everybody's going to be the medical person. But it's good to kind of have a little bit of both. Or at least to have a plan, to have an idea. Because if something does happen and 3 people are designated to so-called take care of the situation, right? Because your response time is, you know, could be up to 45 minutes, maybe, right? So kind of up to you to figure this situation out until people are here to help. Which means it's going to have to be an internal thing. You know, and we can kind of get into some of that too, as far as like, you know, the specifics of who's here on property at all times. Does everybody always know who's here and who belongs here? Or does that vary from time to time?
It's fluid. It's fluid.
So, you know, that's one of those things, you know, to know everybody knows what everyone else is doing.
Right.
And that's a very big, important part of it. You know, and I'm sure with Anthony's guys, and I mean, even my guys at work, you know, and people I've worked with, it's that team aspect to know what everyone's going to do in a certain situation, or at least have an idea. You know, it's not one specific thing, but to have a few different options and, okay, well, I know if something was to happen, I can count on this person for the most part. You know, he knows what his job is. So.
And to know their individual abilities too, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
What you're capable of.
What they're capable of.
You know,
That's it.
yeah, everybody's kind of got like, you know, made up scenarios in their head of what they're capable of, and a lot of people are really bad about overemphasizing what they think they know how to do.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a little soul searching. You got to kind of be realistic sometimes with what your actual capabilities are. And if you're lacking in something and you know you're lacking, well, there you go. It's a good reason to work on stuff. You should never try to stop getting better at things. So, you know, whether your job is to do medical or whether to do the security aspect or to do both, but don't just take one course and be like, oh, okay, we're good, because you're not good, because you should always be improving your skills. So, it's kind of the presentation with that. Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
We have a tradition of broadly inviting people to temples, lost souls, you know, welcoming people.
Right.
They've made it to a Hare Krishna temple. Their spiritual life can now begin. We have a tradition of that kind of compassion, and it's really tricky to mix that with protection. in defense? It's really a hard mentality to sort out.
It's not about being, so it's not about being outwardly mean or rude
Real skeptical.
or skeptical,
of people. I mean,
but just to be aware that, you know, not to go through things with blinders on, just to be aware that, yeah, this is this is a possibility that this could happen. You know, I don't, when I'm at home, I don't keep firearms like, I don't know, I'll watch TV and, you know, I might have my firearm sitting next to me. I don't do that because, hey, I'm paranoid that somebody's going to kick my door in. But if you look at statistics, people get their doors kicked in. It happens. It's not something I just make up in my head. And it's not something I don't want it to happen. It's not something I'm hoping happens. But if it does happen, I have to be in a place where I'm prepared to do it. And it kind of goes back to everyone's kind of in charge of their own safety, to a certain extent.
Is this like trust but verify? Trust but verify?
Yeah, you know, it kind of goes back to the beginning where you're talking about situational awareness, right? You're looking at body language, you're looking at facial expressions, you know, if I'm saying one thing, but my body language doesn't match what's coming out of my mouth, that should be kind of, I mean, we all do it every day when we talk to people.
Right.
Right? You know, when you're looking at deception or anything like that, it's generally because what they're saying isn't matching what their body language is saying. Body language is the number one indicator of anything basically that's going to happen. So kind of goes back to the whole situational awareness thing. You're just kind of watching body language. Do they seem out of place because they're just unsure of, you know, what they're about to hear, or you know what's going on? And it's
look,
new to them. You know,
be
everybody's a
welcoming.
little uncomfortable, that kind of stuff. So
Definitely be welcoming.
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because that shouldn't stop, right? Always be welcoming. You know, always be kind. You know, just to each other, right? That's pretty much my outlook on life in general. Always be welcoming and always be kind, but just know that some people don't have that same philosophy, and there's a time to not be kind and welcoming also. And you know, and with a community like this, it is a good idea. You have to vet. I mean, you have to vet. Be welcoming, be kind, but you have to vet people because you just don't know nowadays.
Yes, ma'am.
Unfortunately, I find that not just, you know, Hare Krishnas, but spiritual communities in general tend to attract a higher level of people that have mental illness also. So like, even here, you know, many different places I've experienced where, you know, people are acting out of character, behaving in a way that could be considered escalating, and they're like mentally ill, you know? So for just the attendee at that point, if nobody's doing anything about it and you feel uncomfortable, you can just get up and just walk out.
And leave. And that goes back to see something, say something.
Yeah.
Like if you see somebody acting irrational or out of place,
Right.
well, don't wait for someone else to acknowledge that. You've seen that. That's what you're perceiving. You take action and either speak to who needs to be spoken to about it or leave.
Or at least get others involved, right? So,
Right.
you know, at least, you know, you may go talk to the individual and find out that they're not probably at the point of physical threat because you realize that there's probably some mental issues going on there.
But you never know, like it's
No,
a
you
very
don't.
fine line, you know?
You don't,
People
and
who suffer
everyone's
from mental
going through
illness,
something.
Like you can just go from
Yeah,
bad to
we
worse in a
you
second.
know, in corrections and law enforcement, we see it every day. We come into contact. But, you know, it kind of goes back to awareness and body language and being able to read. And, you know, we can't go into every situation going, you know, you stay
Right.
way over there. I don't want to deal with you, right? A lot of our interactions are within arm's reach.
Right here.
And we're just, I mean, we're constantly watching body language, hands, you know, the way they're positioning themselves. I mean, it's a mental workout that is developed over
It's
time.
kind of what you have to go through though.
And when you share that information amongst each other, in just a sharing mode, other people might say, well, okay, I'll check this out, or
Right, and that's the
look into
thing.
something else, they give you ideas about what to do next.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, because if no one says anything and
Right.
everyone's, you know, thinking it, and someone's waiting for somebody, if something happens, something happened, then you know, it could have been prevented at that point.
You have to be realistic. If you're not sharing it and you let it go.
And that's the hard, sad truth about it. You have to be realistic. And
you have
that's
to trust your gut feeling.
the problem with a lot of situations is people are not realistic about it. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
You know, like I stated earlier, we didn't make up any of this stuff.
right.
This is what it is, basically.
Yeah.
It's the world we live in.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And we all want to try to be good people, and we all want to, like I said, be welcoming and kind to others. But that's not everyone's view on life. So we have to be prepared, or we have to at least prepare ourselves for the situations that aren't exactly easy to talk about.
And it may never happen.
It might,
But the
and
thing is,
hopefully it never does.
if we walk around with our head up in the clouds and not pay attention to all the little nuances of anyone that's not normally here, then you could be
Right.
in a situation that if you'd spoken up and shared it with your friends, your concerns, then maybe they would give you some ideas to help avoid
Right.
something bad happening.
And let's face it, you know, anything can be a weapon. So it's not just firearms, right? It ain't just about having a sign that says, no one here allowed to carry a gun but our security staff, right? Because anything can be a weapon, you know? A pencil can be a weapon, a chair can be a weapon, a book can be a weapon.
It doesn't matter, we can use it.
Yeah,
That bucket of rocks thing.
Bucket of rocks.
That you could put in the corner somewhere is a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, better than, better a plan than nothing.
Well, and that's the thing, it's about having some type of a plan.
That's simple to do.
Go ahead, Molly.
Just one thing I was taught in a different active shooter class too, they were talking about children in school, that they should put their book bags on because
Yes,
the books
that's a good idea also.
stop the bullets.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah.
Depends on the thickness of the book, right? How many books are there, what's the thickness of the round,
Kids have several books.
caliber of the round, stuff like that, yeah. And I don't know,
Something's better than nothing, you know?
I think Louisiana just passed a law where they're now allowing students to purchase the
Armor for the backpacks?
The armor for the
Yeah.
backpacks.
I got a
What
few
is
different.
that?
They have a couple companies out that make a backpack that's got Kevlar in it as a bulletproof, so that, it at least gives them
It's
something that
something.
the kids can put on barricade, or if they hit the ground, they can put it up in front of them, create the barrier.
And they're not really that expensive. I got two. I got actually three. Two were bought, and one I actually just kind of made on my own out of just some Kevlar I had, and a backpack with a computer sleeve. It works. It's something. Something's better than nothing. So and that goes with
That's a really good point. That's
Yeah.
true.
What will stop a bullet and what won't? What is considered concealment and what is considered, cover that will stop a round. I mean, that debate could go on for hours.
Right.
So, best thing is not to be there. And if you're gonna be there, have a plan.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
We have like 2 major, maybe 3 major festivals per year here, and we are all busy. We are submerged in what we're doing. We're selling, we're talking, we're preaching, we're dealing with animals. Everybody is busy, and in a situation like that, shouldn't there be at least 2 or 3 people
Designated.
as roamers? Hey, we're part of the festival too. I mean, everybody's enjoying. A festival is, the public is coming, everybody's chanting Hare Krishna, everybody's having a good time. But having 2 or 3 people being super objective,
I would.
fitting into the scenario,
I would. I mean, nothing that says so. I've run a bunch of security at a bunch of different locations, and sometimes it was about me being just a part of the crowd. Not looking like security. I don't need to walk around with a shirt that says security.
Right.
You want
to blend in,
blend in, fit in. Be a part of the celebration, but realize that your main purpose is, even though you're a part of the situation, your main purpose is to pay attention.
observe,
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that was number 1. And the second question is for Frank and Tony, was I just realized, I've been here for almost 20 years, 22 years. I just realized how narrow that door is. And you know, I know about the funnel and all that. That's not considered a really valid exit in an emergency situation. In fact, that's a trap in a way, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know.
Where exactly does that door go?
Well, there's an exit within feet, 15,
Okay.
16, 18 feet.
So it goes to like a little alcove or something?
Yeah.
It's like a little back spot.
Right there.
And then it
Okay.
exits to the,
And that's it.
You know, I mean,
windows are more,
you know, you got windows, you got, you know, it depends on the threat, it depends on where the
Yeah,
threat's
yeah.
at. Everything's gonna dictate, that's why, like you were saying, you know, as far as like restaurants, like, there are certain places in restaurants I, for the most part, won't sit, because I like to know where my exits are, I like to not have my back to anyone.
I'd like to point out that although that door is a narrow, spot to go out, if the active shooters came in here, diving through those curtains and going that way is also an exit.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, just things to know though. I mean, here's the thing, this is your community, right? It's kind of up to everyone here to know the lay of the land, to know where all the exits are, right? Now, usually when we run these classes, it's usually kind of a 2-day deal, right? We'll have the security team come to the range, we'll see where everybody's at, we'll tune them up, right? We'll try to fix whatever problems they have. And then the second day, we come to your place and we run you through stuff, sight unseen. As far as we've never been to your place before, so we have no idea the layout till we get there. And time again, we show up, and it's not a testament to how great we are, but it's a testament to show how just people don't realize their own surroundings, how easy it is for us to go to a place unknown and just roll over the people who are in there trying to stop us, because most of the time they don't know where the exits are.
Yeah.
They don't know where the soft entries are, you know? Just because that's the front door, that doesn't mean someone's gonna come in that way, you know? It's just being prepared, knowing, having eyes, being aware of stuff. So. Any other questions? Comments, concerns?
Guess they'll do it.
So, for the people here that do want to be involved, you know you gotta get you know who to get a hold of. If it's something you're interested in, it's something we do provide. Whatever aspect you'd want to be involved, and be involved in one way or the other. If you see something, definitely do make a note and talk to talk to the appropriate people about it, because this is your community. And it's up to you to basically be your own security personnel, right? You have to protect yourself. You know, it's up to you to get yourself up to speed with all that type of stuff. You know, go for it.
there's a out out called 8 Minutes, and that's the average.
I think I've actually seen that. Yeah.
That's the average time that an active shooter event lasts. And after 8 minutes, it's pretty much either the active shooter's out of ammo and he runs, or somebody stops
Takes his
him.
own life, yeah.
That's kind of a vague number. I mean, I'm sure it's a good statistic, but I mean, you know, you can do a lot of damage in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
A lot can happen in 3 minutes. So
Or it can happen in 3 minutes.
a lot can happen in a minute.
Getting away from firearms and assaults like that, sometimes we have people who are not who we think they were,
Right.
become belligerent and they become an intruder. When I was working psychiatry in the Navy, we were really proficient at approaching a patient who was totally out of control, violent, unpredictable, ready to explode, and one person was assigned the left hand, the right arm, the left leg, right leg, and one person went for the body, who was the team leader, right? So that's important too.
Positioning.
How to disable somebody without hurting yourself or hurting them.
Right. Positioning is very important. So like interview stance, right? If you're working with a partner, right? To have your partner position. you know, and every agency's kind of got their own way of teaching this. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, we kind of do the, as far as blade it off while you're interviewing the person, and, you know, our backup or whatever would be kind of positioned on the side and back of them.
Yeah, we do what's called the tactical L. So,
Yeah.
if Frank was the guy I was talking to, right? I would be here, and then my partner would be
Right.
off here. So we would make an L. We do that a lot with inmates in our facility that don't want to lock down, go to the cell, whatever. We position them where, so we don't corner them, right? Because if I had a deputy here, and a deputy here, then he knows there's nowhere for, there's no retreat for him.
Right.
So we always work on the premise, we want to give him at least one retreat. So we'll position where the talker's here, somebody else is here if his cell is over there. So it gives him the opportunity to just give in and just go to a cell.
Right.
Right, but we're still in a good tactical position, but if we do have to go hands-on, you know, we can do that. So, but there's, with our tactical team in the jail, we do the same thing when we do a cell extraction or whatever.
The idea is not to get hurt, not to get hurt or hurt the
Right,
patient.
reduce the possibility of injuries.
And that comes with positioning, which is going to come with training, which is going to come with practice, which is going to come with running this scenario over and over and over.
And I have a right to put on handcuffs on this person to prevent further endangerment of the people here, correct? That's called detainment, it's not arrest. But I have a right to do that, am I correct?
I think. I don't know what Mississippi law is.
It depends on what Mississippi law is.
Yeah.
So,
You'd have to look at the citizen's arrest, you know?
yeah,
law
citizens
here.
arrest thing, if you are, you know, deemed head of security here, or, you know what I'm saying, in some aspect of that.
yeah.
So what you run into is illegal detainment.
Right.
There is such a thing.
False imprisonment. Yeah, false imprisonment.
Okay.
But I would assume if, you know, that's kind of your position here, or that's, you know, you're worried about the safety of everyone else, and if you detain someone and you happen to slap them cuffs on them, or, you know, I would definitely go talk to somebody and ask. And here's the thing, work with law enforcement.
Oh yeah.
Know who's going to show up. Try to get on a first name basis with some of these guys in the area, right? Have them out for the festivals. Invite them to come to some of the events and stuff. So everyone has a good working relationship. That's kind of where everything's kind of fell off in, you know, the last however many years. Is, you know, no one has a good working relationship. Most departments don't even have a good working relationship with other departments. So, you know, if you're working with people and you're on a first name basis and they know you and you know them, man, that goes a lot of way. You know, that goes far. Like being on a first name basis with somebody, if I have to go respond to a situation and I know this person, even if I just know this person's name, then it makes it, for whatever reason, more personal. And it's not like I'm gonna try any less to get to a situation where somebody I don't know, but it adds more of a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
You know?
I got it.
Yes, sir.
I'm from Louisiana. What are the legalities of carrying like red pepper spray or mace and using it, or like an expandable metal police baton?
I would go with the OC spray and not the baton. The baton opens up a lot of liability.
But OC spray is?
It's just a personal defense.
What does OC stand for?
Oleoresin capsicum.
Oh, it's the red pepper spray.
Yeah.
It's a red
But you can purchase at an Army surplus store or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're allowed to carry that, and if you feel like your
If you
safety is in jeopardy or other, you can actually use it and not be liable.
Well, you know, and here's the whole thing with that, right? And it's the same with I would almost say it's the same with any type of, can you articulate why you did this? It's all about how you articulate stuff. What was if someone was to ask if you was to use OC spray on somebody, right? can you verbally articulate why you did this? What was the reason for you to do this? Is there another option? Can you just leave? You know, can you just walk away, or is this person, you know, forcing you? You're in fear for your life. You're in fear of, you know, some kind of bodily harm, right? How are you going to articulate that? So those are things that kind of need to, you know, run through your head when it comes to any type of use of force, whether it's less than lethal, or whether it's, you know, lethal force. You know,
type of use of force.
Do you have any other options? Because anytime you go from, you know, an altercation to where now you're using any type of use of force, what are the options you have?
Well, let's say you're in a, what do you call active shooter situation. You have like a piece of wood, they call them tire checkers, right? For the truck.
Tire thumpers.
Or a police baton, or what do you call it? Red peppers. I mean, at that point, you don't have to worry about it. If it's taking down the guy.
Yeah, at that point, I would safely say all bets are off at that point.
What's that?
Yeah, I would safely say all bets are off at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, because almost every state has a law for self-defense, use of force and self-defense, right?
Right.
And it's usually worded in such a way that, you know, you feel that the threat is, you know, imminent, right?
Yeah.
And so other people can't
So
take advantage.
it kind of goes back to, you know, being able to articulate. There's no provision in, I know in Louisiana, where it says that you have to retreat first.
Yeah,
right?
there's no duty
There's
to
no
retreat,
duty to
so
retreat.
you can stand your
So
ground.
you can justify and articulate, you know, the threat was
We
imminent
keep
and
a
everything else.
baseball bat around in the corner, and if that active shooter comes in, he's looking, you can.
You can.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't. I mean, if I'm walking down the street and someone robs me and I feel like I can articulate why I sprayed him with OC spray, and I feel like it's warranted, and I feel like I am threatened to that point where I have to take some type of forceful action, I'm
Yeah, to
gonna
protect yourself.
to protect myself, right? I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm not doing it to be antagonistic or.
I mean, it's not like you're going to do it and just never call anybody, right? You're probably going to do it, get to a point where you can call 911 or whatever and say,
Right.
hey, look, you know, this just happened, blah, blah, blah.
Right. It's
So
not like
it's
you're
not-
just going to do it and walk away.
Yeah.
You know. So those are things to think about too.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you have a question, sir?
Yes, sir. So, I drive a taxi in New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's many times a situation there's, you know, it's very common where you can get a person or something. But good thing for us is we have cameras in the car, so does that add to the articulation, or
Yes.
the
Yes.
acting word really?
Yes.
Okay.
The cameras add to it because it's proof. It's right there.
Okay. And what would be your suggestion? Because I totally, you know, I believe that if you live by the gun, you're gonna die by it also. So I don't want to keep that in my car for sure. But what would be a good protection? I was thinking about OC spray and
OC
stuff.
spray is good unless it's in a confined environment. Because the problem with that is if you spray them, you're going to get contaminated too. And unless you're, and driving is not, driving is not the place you want to be contaminated, especially different mixtures and stuff are really nasty.
Does the gel help? The gel?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gel is specifically designed for indoor use or confined area because once it hits, it turns to liquid and it doesn't, you know,
Right.
There's not a lot of aerosol effect with it.
So that's an option.
Maybe unrelated, but a scenario that you're driving down the street and you see a woman running from a man who's screaming bloody murder like he's going to do her some bodily harm.
Mm-hmm.
Can you like scare the guy by honking your horn and coming through and just honking and like distract him? Is that unadvisable?
Here's the problem with that, okay? Because there's a specific deal with that. So you don't know the situation, right?
Right.
They could be running from law enforcement. They could have just robbed this person, and that's why this person is chasing them. So you have to be really especially careful when you're intervening on someone else's behalf, that you know what that situation is, because if not, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
We tell people a lot of times, sometimes it's better just to be a really good witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if it's spousal abuse, that it's obvious it's a husband, or, you know, that it's not obvious? But
That's the whole thing. It's never really obvious because no one knows what. There was an incident. I forget where it happens, and I don't want to give too many details because I don't want to get it wrong. But there was an incident where a guy pulled up in a parking lot. Two people fell out of a van. It was a guy on top of a lady, and the guy got out of his car when he seen this, and he shot the guy who was on top of the lady. But what he didn't realize is that that female tried to stab this guy like seconds earlier before they fell out the van. So that's one of them things where it's kind of best be a good witness.
So I would,
Witness.
yeah, so it's better to be a witness.
Obvious.
No, the situation changes if,
Yeah, I mean,
if the
he's
guy's physically
beating her,
and all that other
They
stuff.
try to distract.
That
him.
becomes a different situation.
right?
Honk
And
the
then
horn, honk the horn, but then the problem is he may turn on you and come after
Yeah.
you.
Well, yeah.
well, and that's one of the things you got to be prepared for. You know, so if you're going to intervene,
Yeah.
you know, think about it when you're intervening.
We witnessed a situation, there's a horrendous fight between a couple, I guess, in a parking lot.
At a temple.
Horrendous fight, and some other guy came out to his car and he just paid no attention. He made his own phone call, he made his own phone call, kind of talking. The police came.
Right.
Called the police. But
He was over-
but they had no idea.
You would never know he was.
And
calling the police. He
that would be a good way to handle it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, you know, and that's one of the things I tell people with the concealed carry permit. Like, I'm not giving you a badge. Like, all I'm giving you is, all you're doing is getting a permit so you can protect yourself. This is, you're not able to go around like a superhero and prevent crimes and all this other stuff. No.
If you have a CCW and you decide you're out of carry, you're illegal, or is that your option to do that?
Come again?
If you're a CCW
Mm-hmm.
in Mississippi and you decide to carry outer,
Oh, you mean outside the waist, like?
yeah,
Like
Yeah,
an open carry?
yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
you can still be concealed. And well, as far as us, we're small. The legal ramifications. They say when you discharge a bullet, every time you shoot a bullet, there's an attorney attached.
There's an
to it.
attorney attached to it. Yeah.
Right.
There's a liability.
So, getting back to protection of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Gulf Coast, ISKCON, New Talavana, if something happens to someone here with a firearm being discharged, either there's death or injury or dismemberment, whatever, there's going to be legal action.
There's always going to be legal action. There's always going to be legal action.
There's going to be a legal
There's
action.
going to be something. There's going to be some kind of course of action.
Right. And if the person who discharged that firearm, whether it be intent, negligent, whatever,
There's always going to be something.
his training and his position is going to be scrutinized. Am I correct?
Everything. Yeah. Everything will be looked under a microscope. So that's why the training part is so very important.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard for you to go where you haven't been before. So that's kind
And
of
lawyers have a tendency to make everything bigger than it really is. And I gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
Follow and keep the curtain closed.
Along with training, some facilities and churches require that the individuals have their own insurance. There's a group called, I think it's USCC.
Yeah, it is.
There's a few different ones. I mean, there's one I recommend just because I've been to some of their seminars and it's what I use. And I mean, I can give you some
$19 for $1 million.
pamphlets about it. It's a good idea to have your
$19 a month.
yeah.
$4 million worth of protection.
Yeah, you just got to. There's a few of them out there. You just got to look at them, see what offers the best protection, and because really it's peace of mind.
Yeah.
The one I have, it's like $100 for the year, but you have like two attorneys on retainer and all types of stuff. And no matter, it's more like self-defense insurance other than just shooting insurance. So like no matter what types of self-defense it is, whether you hit somebody with a baseball bat, you're still going to get represented.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, that's one of them personal things you got to kind of go through and do your research.
Any other questions or comments? Hey, Frank and Tony.
Hey.
We got one
Thank you.
back here.
What we
Thank
got?
you so much.
Last but not least, I just wondered if you have anything specific for the women around here. Women might be
Get
milking
training.
the cows or walking and praying. Or
Yeah.
Get training. Do not allow yourself to be a victim. And that goes across the board, men, women, young, old. Do not allow yourself to be a victim, right? It all starts with having self-worth. You know, in order to love others, you have to be able to love yourself. Realize and understand and commit to yourself that you're not going to allow yourself to be a victim, which might take a little bit of work on your part as far as, you know, getting the training, getting the confidence that you need to stand up for yourself. But it all starts with sitting there and literally saying, no, I'm not going to be a victim.
My name is Silvia. Here I am known as Chamalota. I am Bob's wife.
Nice to meet you.
I am from South America, and the laws, the setup, the social structure is different there. But we have seen so much violence even now that the last time my husband and I we were visiting my country, I am from Ecuador, we took some of the pepper spray with us just for security reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But regarding to what this lady said, I can attest for myself that I consider myself, like pretty much everybody here, a non-violent person,
Right.
a person who don't feel necessarily comfortable with weapons. But I have been trained by my husband, and I went to a public train with the local police in PTU. So it's like you say, it's not that I have to be, you know, showing up. I know how to use a weapon
Right.
if the time is necessary. But even with our beliefs and our principles, to me, it's kind of common sense for the time we are living, that we have to have that training and we have to have that confidence, and just hope that we will never have to use one day, but have that security that I know how to protect myself and my loved ones.
About having that confidence. And like most domestic violence type of situations, if the person who is being, I guess the person on the receiving end, and this doesn't go across the board, but this I think would kind of be, you know, cover a lot. If the person on the receiving end would say no, and they would get themselves out of that situation, stand up for themselves and not put up with that, then it wouldn't escalate to, you know, some of the extents it does. Now, I get it, some people can't leave the situation, but, you know, there's kind of always a way out. You know, just don't allow yourself. People are only going to treat you how you allow them to treat you. And that's pretty much across the board. If people realize that they can get over on you, or that they can use you, or that they can hurt you and intimidate you and you allow them to, then pretty much they're going to do it. So I think that's kind of a, you know, something I'd like everybody to kind of take from this. Don't let yourself be a victim. Don't allow it.
I think we have another question.
I just went through training about child protection. We had a training last year, and so we came to know about many of these organizations and NGOs that help training about child awareness and on government levels, like for schools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have stuff like that in New Orleans and here about EMS and about gun training? I don't think, but at least EMS. I think.
Right.
Do you have any organizations that you know would like to list or stuff like that around, which help?
I'm trying to think.
American Red Cross.
American Red Cross,
Association.
American Heart Association.
Yeah, those are two of the
Those will
big
teach you
ones.
basic, you know, first aid,
I have
CPR, stuff like
actually
that.
I have some friends that kind of do a civilian TCCC course. If that would be something you're interested in, I can actually reach out to him and see when's the next time he's giving it. Or if you want, I could actually reach out to him and see if he wants to come here and hold one of those classes.
Great, I'll talk to
He's actually he runs security for kind of a big entity in New Orleans, so I can actually reach out to him.
Okay.
Because he does a pretty you know, I think it's like a 6-hour course or something, or a 7-hour
BCLS,
course.
first aid, trauma.
Yeah, yeah, he does all that. Stop the bleed.
BCLS, basic cardiac life support.
Mhm.
First aid and trauma.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I'll get a hold of him and I'll have him touch base with you, and we'll see if we can get that going.
Frank, it's getting late. Before we conclude, can you just talk a little bit more about MCTA and what it offers?
So I am one of the senior instructors at MCTA, which is where me and Bob met. It's Mississippi Combat Training Academy. We offer anything from basic shooting courses for people that have never touched a firearm to more in-depth type of tactical training that we offer to a lot of law enforcement and military. I've qualified many law enforcement organizations, not to drop any names, but quite a few in the last few years that I've been doing this, and we have a lot of contracts with some of the bigger organizations. Like I said, we do offer these classes anywhere from, you've never touched a firearm and you just want firearm safety, to all the way to night shooting and vehicle tactics and stuff like that. The owner is he's in Afghanistan right now. He's a contractor overseas. So we kind of have access to some of the newer stuff that they're doing over there now that keeps everybody alive for the most part. So if it's something you would be interested in, definitely Bob knows how to get a hold of me. So we could definitely set something up. And, even with some of the more advanced as far as like law enforcement type stuff, I'm sure Anthony would be more than willing to go through some stuff with y'all. So.
Do you have some cards you can leave?
I should have some in the truck. Yeah, I should have some in the truck. If not, I'll get you some.
Hey, Frank and Tony, you guys rock.